Mr. Rahul Patwardhan is CEO at NIIT Limited. Mr. Patwardhan, thank you very much. Good to have you here with us, sir. Now, we all, of course, know the news which came yesterday, which is the contract, the work from Citi. And that was well received by the marketplace. But I want to take this opportunity, since you're appearing on the channel after a while, to just get to know NIIT a bit better. We all, of course, know NIIT. It's a brand which is has been synonymous with education, IT education, for a long time. But why don't you reintroduce the company to our viewers in terms of the changes which have been made? What is the focus now? Briefly.
Okay. Thank you and good morning. NIIT, as you know, started as an IT training organization way back in 1981, and over the last 34 years, we've trained 35 million people in IT, both as individuals, in schools, and also in the corporate sector. And over the last 8 years or so, we've also been doing training outside of the IT sector in banking and management and retail. And in the last few years, we've got into the skilling space along with NSDC. In parallel, we've also been operating in the international market, doing services around training, not actual delivery of training, but content development, training administration, strategic sourcing. And therefore, our profile has changed pretty substantially over the last 7 or 8 years. Today, 55%, in fact 63% of our revenue of NIIT happens outside India. Of that, most of it happens in the Western markets, which is US and Europe, and about 8% or so happens in emerging markets like China and Southeast Asia and Africa. So 2/3 of our revenue almost is non-India business, which probably most viewers do not even realize. The second is we have in India itself, our business is split between schools, corporate business, and our individual business, which is targeted at various curricula in IT and management and banking. So we have repositioned NIIT as a skill and talent development organization catering to the needs of corporations, individuals, schools, and governments. That is really our repositioning as an organization. From a branding perspective, it's going to be a big ask because Indians in particular know NIIT very, very well in relation to IT. But we're starting to see a lot more appreciation of NIIT being a lot more than an IT training organization. So today we have three main businesses. The corporate business, which is focused at large multinational customers, currently predominantly outside India, but of recently we started focusing at the major players in India who are also multinationals in their own right, like ICICI Bank or Genpact and others. And there we offer a full portfolio of training services.
Okay, let me just come in here. So you're saying overseas is 55%, majority is US, 8% is emerging markets there. India is 45% of the revenue, schools, corporates, individuals. Now, let's just focus on the overseas piece for a bit. What do you do overseas? I mean, overseas also, are you involved with, is it mostly corporates?
Yes, as I said, 55% of the total revenue is in the Western markets, which is completely focused on Fortune 1000 companies. So, for example, Shell or the deal we just announced yesterday, Citibank. We work in the energy sector, we work in the BFSI sector, we work in the life sciences sector, and in the technology and telecom sector. Most of our customers are in that space. They're all very large customers. What we do there is essentially do training outsourcing. We call it managed training services, where the entire portfolio of activity that is required to support the training needs of a company is handled by us. So, for example, if a company needs to build content to train their employees on various different subjects, NIIT's Content Development Factory engages with them, works with their special subject matter experts and builds content on various subjects. Or we do training delivery, where we actually have a pool of our own faculty and third-party faculty all over the world delivering curriculum of all kinds, not just IT, for our corporate customers. So, for example, we do compliance training for some very large multinationals in 60, 70 countries around the world. Third, we do training administration. So any employee in any of these large companies who need to get a course or attend a course, the administration activity activity to organize third-party trainers or our own trainers or classrooms or tea and coffee in the classrooms worldwide is handled in a BPO kind of activity that we deliver out of Gurgaon. And then we have learning technology platforms that we offer. So it's a comprehensive outsourcing of the entire set of things that a large multinational needs to support that training focus. The 8%, which is in the emerging markets, is entirely IT retail training currently. But we also work with a number of universities where the entire curriculum in IT that they deliver is ours, while the degree is theirs. So, for example, in Indonesia, we have 23 universities we work with. In China, we work with a large number of universities. And then we have a lot of business partner training centers. So that's our international business.
Okay, no, that's very comprehensive. Thank you for that. I just want to ask you about the average length of, what is the relationship length, average relationship length in the US, for example, with each of these clients? How old are these relationships?
Yeah, we have very strong relationships. All these contracts we call managed training services contracts are multi-year contracts. Typically, they would be 5-year duration in master services agreements. Many of these companies we've been working with for many years. But typically, it's a strategic relationship, and the intent from the customer side is to keep working with us as long as we're delivering good services. A good example was a Statoil relationship, which we had been working for 5 years. It was renewed in April for another 5 plus 5 years. And that's the kind of relationship that we seek to build with our large multinational customers.
Right. Can you describe how the financials work? So will they say, okay, this is a contract worth, $20, $30, $50 million, and these are the deliverables? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's a good question. The way this business has evolved started off with our doing pieces of work in each of the different, and then that got converted into master services agreements. In the beginning, there were master services agreements which were essentially without any contract value, but with SOWs where pieces of work were executed under the master services agreement. But progressively, each of these engagements has started getting a committed volume of work over the next 5 years. And right now, my focus, having come in last year, is to apply my experience in large-scale outsourcing business in the IT services sector, which I was involved in for many years, into structuring deals of the kind that we have been doing of late with Statoil, for example, and with Citibank and with a few others. So the average ticket size and the average duration of deals is a very important metric that we're working on very seriously.
No, so for example, in the US, what would be the average ticket size of a contract?
Currently, we have about 26 corporate customers who are involved in MTS contracts. We have a number of other customers where we do smaller pieces of business, and our total visibility in terms of all the business within the MSA durations is a little less than 200 million. So that gives you an idea of the average quantum per customer.
But then I lost you there. What is MSA? What is Master Services Agreement, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And $200 million is what?
Is the total visibility of business that we have from these corporate customers.
Okay, $200 million is about 1,200 crores or so. You did about 1,000 crores in financial year 15, right? A little less than 1,000 crores.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a bit of an indication for the future. But would you be able to break down in terms of average ticket size or not really?
No, we don't publish that as of now.
Okay. Another question, of course, is so these are demands from different kinds of customers. You said BFSI, tech, energy, and so if you're working with these companies, completely different industries, different domain knowledge, etc. So do you hire people, I mean, subject matter specialists to come on, design these courses for you? How does it work? And is it possible for a startup, for example, to quickly come in and disrupt the market in any meaningful way? I mean, what's the threat in terms of competition as well?
Yeah. I think what we noticed is that we have very little competition in the MTS space. The only other players who are able to work on some of these large outsourcing deals, which are large in our context, but maybe small in the outsourcing context of IT and BPO, are the HR BPO providers who are doing full-scale HR BPO, where training may be one small component of the entire piece. Otherwise, a large Fortune 1000 company is not going to outsource managed training services to a small player. The risk is just too high. Okay? So we're in the space where we really have no mid-sized competition. We have only the large players to whom this business is actually not very significant or big compared to the rest of the outsourcing business. And then we have a very, very fragmented industry, which is only capable of offering components of the service. So some people do content development, some people do training, some people do administration, some people provide learning technologies, but very few companies, in fact almost none, can present themselves credibly to a Fortune 1000 company and say, we can do all this for you. And we really get extremely good feedback, including uncalled for RFIs and RFPs sent to us by some of these companies where we haven't even met them with our sales force.
Right. So what is an MTS?
Managed Training Services Contract.
Okay. So there is a MSA and there are these separate MTSs within that. Is that how it works?
No. MTS is the service description. So we, like you say, BPO outsourcing. In the training area, we call it Managed Training Services is the service offering. MSA is the contract structured Master Services Agreement, which we sign when we do an MTS contract.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. So, and what you're saying is, so if you sign up with, say, for example, Citi, you'd manage the entire training program for them. I'm just using that as an example. And then you'd look at the needs, and I mean, these are very large global corporations operating in pretty much all countries in the world. So it's possible at some point you are the organization which kind of hires, manages the entire program, or so that Citi itself doesn't have to deal with 1,000 different organizations. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there are different components. So this particular contract is in the tower which we call strategic sourcing. Strategic sourcing addresses the problem that many Fortune 1000 companies have, where because of the fragmented nature of this industry, they have many training suppliers, some doing content development, some doing training delivery, some offering them some ready-made titles on video titles or CBT titles, and in different languages and all over the world. They don't want to deal with so many suppliers. That's a general trend in procurement in all companies, not just in training procurement, but in all procurement. So they appoint strategic sourcing partners specialized in a particular area. So this deal is about the EMA region of Citibank asking NIIT to manage all third-party suppliers related to training on their behalf and help them get quality, get cost savings, and more important, help them transform the training portfolio so that there's better business outcomes for Citibank. And today this is for the EMEA region, but obviously since it's a strategic relationship, our intent is by providing a good service within EMEA, we'll be able to extend that relationship to other regions and tomorrow get into other towers, which could be learning delivery itself, content development itself, and so on. So I'm very excited by this relationship. Obviously, it's an early day.
Mr. Patwardhan, thank you very much, sir. And thanks very much for patiently explaining the nuances there. And I think our viewers would have learned a lot. Thank you indeed. Appreciate it. Let's just take a very quick break here. We'll come back in 2 minutes. We have a discussion coming up on what else but property prices, residential property prices. Ravi Ahuja is with Cushman